Hello everyone and welcome to my July reading wrap-up. I read 6 books in July. 2 were by new-to-me authors and 4 were new-to-me books by authors I'd read before. 2 had been on my own TBR shelves and none were a reread. Regarding authors, all 6 books were written by a woman, 1 by an author of color, 1 by a queer author, and none by a Jewish author. Regarding main characters, all 5 of the fiction books had at least 1 woman, 1 had at least 1 POC, and none had at least 1 queer or Jewish character. The genre spread was 4 fantasy, 1 historical, and 1 nonfiction. I DNF'd 1 book. My ratings were 2 4-stars, 1 3-star, 1 2.5-star, 1 2-star, and 1 1-star. The first 3 books I'm going to talk about are the Graceling series by Kristin Cashore, which I had a wide range of reactions to. Graceling, the first book, I really enjoyed. It takes place in a fantasy world where some of the characters have graces or special powers, essentially. Yangsze, the main character, has the power to protect herself. I really enjoyed her exploration of that power and the political plot lines that were going on, also the romance. Yes, some parts were a little eye-roll worthy, but it wasn't nearly enough to make me put the book down or anything like that. I thought the story balanced the characters, the plot, and the action or tension really well. I was invested and really wanted to know what would happen throughout the book. At the beginning of the book and throughout, Yangsze says that she doesn't want to get married or have children for various reasons. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're starting with that. Of course, she's going to meet the right guy and have their romance and change her mind, because that's how every other book that handles this type of plot line handles it. Spoiler, she doesn't change her mind by the end. I honestly cannot think of any other characters who specifically state they don't want to have kids and don't change their mind by the end of their story. I would have killed to have a character like that when I was a teenager. I was really happy about that, and overall I gave the book 4 stars. Book 2, Fire, is a companion book in the series. It's a prequel that takes place in a different land based on the lore in the series. I actually couldn't get through it. It is a complete turnaround from Graceling, has a lot of useless info dumping, and the tone is extremely bleak. Warnings for past rape, threats of rape, and animal abuse constantly through this book. And I'm not saying that a book with those themes is inherently bad, it just was not handled so well in this book, especially coming off of the tone of Graceling. The main character, Fire, seemed very flat to me, and her only character trait of note was her beauty, literally driving men crazy throughout the book. It's the men's reactions to her throughout that drive the entire plot. I was really disappointed at the lack of complexity. I couldn't finish it. I gave it 1 star. Bitterblue is a sequel to Graceling. It takes place about 10 or so years later, following the character Bitterblue, who we meet in Graceling. It was better than Fire. I did get through it, and it also handles a lot of dark themes. Warnings for suicide, emotional trauma, memories of rape, torture, and forced body and mind control. Yeah, it dealt with a lot of things. I think it dealt with it better than Fire did, certainly, and I liked the first half of this book a lot better than the second half. The second half seemed to try to stuff way too many plot lines in and try to wrap them up that it was very difficult to follow. And because all those plot lines were jammed together, it was just a constant emotional high throughout. There wasn't any time to rest in between these emotional arcs. But what really stood out to me as a positive strength in this book are the characters' relationships to each other. The characters from Graceling, like Yangsze, do come in at some point, and her friendship with Bitterblue was one of the shining moments. Overall, I gave this book 2.5 stars. The 4th book that I read was The Night Tiger by Yangsze Choo. I read The Ghost Bride by her a few years ago and really liked it. Unfortunately, I did not like this book as much. It is a historical book taking place, I believe, in Malaysia, if I remember correctly, in the mid-1900s. Yeah, if that says anything, it's only been a few months since I read this book, and I can't remember all the details because it didn't have that much of an impact on me. I really liked the first half. It had a really great structure with this magical tiger tension and the characters that were being built, and it completely fizzles by the end. That whole magical tiger thing actually turns into some kind of real-world, mundane mystery that I didn't like. The themes throughout the book that were built so well at the beginning died by the end. The main character, Lin, is constantly presented as not like the other girls, which was really irritating, and she's just not a strong character. Her romance with Shin was something that I was rooting for kind of at the beginning, and then Shin turns into this dominating, possessive jerk at the end that I really did not want Jilin to have anything to do with. There's a point where she thinks she's gonna die, and her thoughts as she's dying is that, oh, I should have given up my virginity to Shin when I had the opportunity. I'm just like, are you kidding me? It was so bad at the end, and I was really disappointed, especially since we had such a good thematic structure on the first half of the book. I gave it 2 stars. Next, I read Deerskin by Robin McKinley. This is a fantasy book loosely based on the donkey skin fairy tale, which I'm not personally familiar with. So I had a weird time with this book. I almost DNF'd it at the beginning because it was so slow, but there was a part of my mind that recognized, you know what, it's slow, but it seems deliberate. So I gave it more and more of a chance. And it worked out because by 50% in, I decided I wasn't going to DNF it. And then by the end, I realized that I was invested. I was drawn into that very slow, mythical, fantasy, fairy tale style. It was done very purposefully. If you can get through the first half of the book, knowing that it'll pay off, I do think it's worth a read. It has that very dense fairy tale type feel to it. The main character does deal with a rape. It is on screen in this book, and basically this book follows her dealing with it and getting through her character arc. I thought it was done really well, and there's a lot of dogs in this book. Her companion is a dog, and I loved her relationship with that dog and the other dogs that show up. If you want more details on how the dogs fare in this book, I do have a full spoiler in my Goodreads review, which I'll link to down below. So I enjoyed the character arc, I enjoyed that very dense fairy tale feel, but a lot of the magic presented in this book didn't make sense. There didn't seem to be a coherent structure to it. It just seemed to appear in the ways that it needed to move the plot along, which I didn't like. The book is worth a read, but I don't think I would ever pick it up again. And the last book that I read in July was Indoor Kitchen Gardening by Elizabeth Millard. This is a nonfiction book about gardening. I have not gardened before. I'm always really skeptical about the potential of bringing bugs into my apartment. I don't deal well with that. But I read this book just trying to see what would be involved and what I could potentially do that would be useful for me in my own kitchen. I'm still not sure I want to actually get into gardening, although the author does a very good job of showing you the benefits of it. She also does a very good job of going through all the details of planning for gardening, seasons and watering and sunlight and just all the very complex things that come through with gardening. So it was good for me to read it and really get an idea of what I would be getting myself into and if that's something I really want to do. It's a great starter book for indoor kitchen gardening. The author was very comprehensive. She has resources in there, and it's coming from her own experiences. She runs a farm or something to that effect where she does indoor and outdoor gardening. She has a lot of experience doing this. She also peppered her own personality throughout the book, things that she likes, personal traits. It made the book feel very personal, and hearing her experiences helped contextualize a lot of the advice and how-tos that she was talking about in this book. So I really enjoyed it. If you are interested in at least approaching kitchen gardening or gardening in general, I do recommend this book as a starter book. And that's everything that I read in July. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts on them are. Thanks for joining me.